Hi guys! Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the live lesson for today. All about tone. We're going to be developing hopefully some really beautiful tone on your ukulele. Make it sound really, really warm and beautiful. So, apologies for anyone that's had to put up with mine and Esther's jokes. Actually, I'm going to blame you today, Esther. That was all you. No, I'm teasing. I love Esther's jokes. They're great. Let us know how you're doing, where you are in the world, how everything is going. Hi, Karen. Hi, David. I hope you're keeping well. Hi, Hilke. Yeah, afternoon here. It's 3:30 in the afternoon on a bit of a drizzly, dreary day in the west country of the UK, but that's okay. That's all right. The gardens absolutely were in desperate need for some water, so I'm actually quite happy about that. Hi, Richard. Oh, and Karen, I love your comment. Yeah, let the learning commence. Absolutely brilliant. Hi, Margaret. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've got some nicer weather there than we've got here. I went to the football last night over in Swindon, and it's been like the warmest, hottest few days, hasn't it? And then the whole drive there is torrential downpour, and had the wipers doing this the whole way. So it's a bit of a shock to the system. Sherry, you've got sun over there in Bonita Springs. Am I saying that right? Florida. Oh, amazing. Welcome, everyone. I'll just field a few more comments, but just to let you know what's going to happen today. So this is a live lesson all about developing tone on your ukulele. And it's a funny old thing, tone, isn't it? Because sometimes we think of like good tone and bad tone, but it's all quite subjective, isn't it? I prefer to think almost as warm tone and bright tone. They both have their uses for different ways. So we're going to really dig into that and learn about how to get the best tone out of your ukulele, but more importantly, how to vary that tone and use it to your advantage, which hopefully should be really kind of enlightening and good fun for everyone. Hi, Tom. If you haven't already got the worksheets, I'll have them up on the screen as big as I can get them. Today we've got this piece called Sigh Waltz. It was a piece that I just kind of wrote doing what I call noodling, you know, and you're just kind of playing about with your ukulele and seeing what comes out of it. It's one of my favourite things to do. And I've started using it for a lot of my demos because it's relatively simple, but really pretty. And it kind of allows me to pull out the best tone, I think, out of the ukes that I sell and promote as well. So we're going to have a look at this Sigh Waltz. I'm going to teach you how to play it. So not only will you be able to develop great tone, we'll talk all about that. You'll also have a lovely piece, hopefully, that you can play. And I think for the first time, I've actually written it out as a full piece of music. So I've gone back to good old teaching mode, and I've done this in Sibelius using standard notation and tablature there to help you guys. So it would really help me throughout this lesson if you could ask as many questions as comes into your head. Hi, Steve, mate. Just because, hi, Sherry. Just because sometimes I might have forgotten to tell you about something, but this workshop I think is going to bring up lots of interesting questions. So please ask away. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay. If there's something that I can't answer and I'm deep into something, normally one of my trusty helpers will be there in the comments to help as well, which is fantastic. So let's think about what tone is. So tone, I really think of tones in terms of quality. That doesn't necessarily mean good versus bad. That can mean warm versus kind of shrill, or kind of bright versus deep, things like that really. And there's lots of different tones that we can pull out of our ukuleles. And there's tons and tons and tons of things that affect the tone of the ukulele. So just before, we look into any music, I've written here on your first sheet lots of things to think about with tone. So these are things that we're not going to affect with our playing. These are things that are universal. So we've got strings. So many different strings we can buy for our ukulele. It's almost quite overwhelming, isn't it? I just grabbed a few packets here to show you. So these are just like a few that I've got to hand personally. The main types of strings, though, I think you can kind of group into a few categories. The first and most prevalent is Nile guts. Now, these weren't the most prevalent strings for many, many years on the ukulele. Developed by Aquila are the main ones that do it, but Martin do a polygut version, and there's a few others. The earliest ukuleles were strung with catgut, which is quite repulsive if you're vegetarian like me, because it's actually made out of sheep's intestines. Luckily, it's not made out of the guts of cats. I don't know where the cat comes from. Perhaps somebody can tell me. And those strings had a very warm tone because it was quite thick. And what Nile guts, what Aquila have tried to do is to develop a synthetic version of that. What you get from Nile gut is a lot of power. So if your ukulele is feeling a bit quiet, it works really well on laminate ukuleles. Nile guts will give you punch, and it's really nice for that kind of old time playing. Following catgut, the next most common form of strings was nylon strings. They had a bit more stability in tuning. They didn't vary in terms of pitch and things when the temperature went up and down quite as much as catgut did. Those have I think of them as quite a soft tone when they're finger picked, but quite a bright tone when they're strummed hard. That's what Jake Shimabukuro uses on a lot of his things. My absolute favourite set of strings, but again, this is all completely objective. There's no right or wrong of this. And the best thing to do is to experiment with strings yourself. Hi, Angela, no worries. I hope they had a good walk. My favourite are fluorocarbons, and that's another synthetic material. In fact, the early fluorocarbons, and many brands still now, are made in the same factory where they make fishing line. Because fishing line needs to be a very thin, very strong material. And that's what fluorocarbon is. Fluorocarbons, I think, will give you the best sustain if that's what you're after in your ukulele. For some people, they find them bright, but I think with a bit of control, you can really kind of temper that down a little bit. So I'm not going to get into a massive hour-long discussion about strings. We could do, because it's so tempting and there's so much we can tell you about. But the best thing, I think, have a little bit of an experiment and see what suits you. The big thing, I guess, to think about in terms of strings, even more than your brand, is whether you're going to go high G or low G. So high G is your traditional, we also call it re-entrant tuning. My dog has fleas. It's your traditional high, lowest, higher, highest still. Or you could go, a lot of modern players nowadays are using low G. It's the same tuning, only the top string is an octave lower. So we go from the lowest note through to the highest note. They both have advantages and disadvantages. A low G will give you some real nice depth. If I play a chord, say an F major 7, one of my favourites up here, it's a very wide sounding chord because we have that low note on the low G. Whereas if I play the same thing on my high G, it still sound really beautiful, but the notes are closer together, so it misses a bit of the range. The only thing with low G that some people don't like is it can sound a little bit boomy. So when you're strumming, really exaggerating it, you can really hear that low G ringing out. But I'm actually going to show you a technique with how to deal with that in a minute. When we get into the piece, I'll play both high G and low G, and I'll show you how you can deal with that. I tend to play a wound low G string because I find the unwound strings are a bit too thick, and they can sometimes make your ukulele not intonate very well. They can sound a bit out of tune as you go up and down the fretboards. Then, of course, we've got ukulele sizes. So generally, soprano is going to have a less sustain. It's got a lower string tension. Concert has a slightly higher string tension, not as high as tenor. And then tenor has the highest string tension. Baritone is the odd one out, and which is tuned differently, a lot lower. So you really need to try some ukulele sizes to see what fits with you. there's no right or wrong answer for that. A lot of people tend towards tenor ukuleles because they just have, because of that higher string tension, they've got that higher sustain, so you can play them and the note will ring out that little bit longer. But a downside of tenors is the string tension is a lot tighter to achieve that, so they can be a bit more tough to play on the hands. So lots of kinds of ups and downs. But there's a bit of a common misconception that all tenor ukuleles will sound deeper and kind of have a lot more sustain than smaller ukuleles. A lot of this can be altered by technique, and this is what I really want to dig in today. This is where things get exciting. But I thought I just needed to mention that. Obviously, tuning is going to affect things as well. We've talked about high G and low G already. A lot of people with sopranos and smaller ukes, they like to tune up a whole note. So instead of G, C, E, A, they'll go for A, D, F sharp, B. And in the early days, we think that was the most common tuning for ukuleles up to about the 1930s. And then people went for a more relaxed tension as the ukuleles started to go up in size. So traditionally, that's why if you find a lot of old sheet music, it looks like the chords are different or the chords are wrong. So yeah, so always have a look to see which tuning it's in first. Oh, hi, from Maryland. Excellent, excellent. You King Lady, I know we've talked on email. I always forget your first name and I always want to say hello. So let me know your name. I know it sounds daft, but I can never remember it in the comments. So thanks, guys. Hi, Kelly. So that low G uke is my... This was made by a luthier in America called Bohannon, and this is a ukulele that's made out of a redwood top, koa back and sides, and it has that lovely low G on it. Now this kind of leads me into something that I was going to talk about next, but before I do, let me just take a couple of questions from here. So Hilka's asked, do strings make a difference on laminate instruments or only solid ukes? Tough one actually, Hilka, because a lot of this depends on not just the wood but the bracing and all sorts of things like that, which we'll talk about in a minute. I think they do make a big difference, and I think it's worth experimenting with strings as much on laminates as solid. I tend to find the difference between strings you hear a bit more in solid wood ukuleles, because solid wood ukuleles have tend to have a little bit more personality from the tops that they use. So the differences are bigger, but you certainly will still find differences in laminate ukes. And if you've got a laminate uke, people are really snobby about them. They shouldn't be. There are some brilliant laminate ukuleles around, and solid doesn't necessarily always mean better. But if you have got a laminate uke, sometimes because they're not solid wood, they don't have the volume and punch of a solid wood ukulele. Generally, I would err towards null gut strings for those, because I feel that it just gives those laminate ukes a little bit of a punch, kind of levels up a little bit, brings them somewhere to near solid wood instruments. But I do think you need to kind of have a little experiment with that as much as possible. So, oh, a question from Esther. Cool. Let's take this as we're talking about strings. So Esther's asked, in the notes I say a wound third can add balance. Do I mean fourth? No, absolutely a wound third string. So quite often with low G strings, we'll have either a wound string like this, which you can tell it'll be a bit thinner, and if you put some nail against it, you'll have that sound, as opposed to a smooth string, which is made out of the same material as the rest of the other four strings. These tend to be a nylon core wrapped with some kind of metal alloy around the outside. A lot of Hawaiian players, and I used to do this on my kamakas that I used to have, will also place a wound third string on their ukulele. So that's the C string. Just like a lot of guitars will have a wound third string as opposed to an unwound one. Because the wound third string is slightly thinner than our normal C string, it has a little bit more balance, a lot of people find. So if you find your C string is booming out a bit, sometimes adding that wound string can really balance it out. So when I played my Kamaka ukulele, I actually used to have a high G, just normal string, a wound low C, same tuning as the other C, but wound, and then E and A. So that's something well worth experimenting with. I don't believe I have one in the shop, otherwise I would have liked to have shown you one, but we'll yeah, I'll see if I can find one for another session. But yeah, a wound third can be great as well. Then, of course, we've got to think about woods. Now, again, there's a lot of misconceptions in woods. So you can only really compare woods if you're talking about the same builder using the same techniques, because the bracing system that they use in their ukulele can have as much impact on tone as the tone woods on the top. So everything that I say in terms of these woods is kind of generalised, and you have to pretend I'm talking about the same ukulele with the same bracing pattern made by the same builder. Okay. Generally, with all that being equal, certain woods have certain tone qualities, generally. So hardwoods such as koa tend to air towards the mids. Imagine you had like a stereo amplifier. You remember our old ones where we'd have all the dials going up and down? Koa, as a hardwood, tends to have a lot of mids. So that means it's not as bassy, if you like, and it's not as shimmery or kind of trebly in the top as well. It has a lot of mid punch. And you can actually, you can hear this in this more better. Soft tops, such as cedar and spruce, tend to have more in the low end. So if you want more of a bassy sound, that doesn't mean in pitch, it just means a deeper tone. That's something to consider. And many guitar makers and ukulele makers for years and years and years have used spruce tops and hardwood back and sides. So this one has a redwood top and a koa back and sides. And if you think of the violin world, you know, the kind of the most respected violin maker of all time, Stradivarius, all of his violins were made with a European spruce top paired with a maple back and side, so softwood top and then a hardwood back and side. So that will give you more basses, and it can create a warmer sounding ukulele. Interesting though, do you remember I said how the different makers can affect things? Well, you would imagine that this redwood, which is known as a very warm top, you would imagine that this uke would sound warmer than this uke that has a koa top. But you have to ignore, I'll just play the bottom 3 strings, ignore the low G. Okay, that's the more better with the koa top. And then on the redwood, this one is brighter and louder. So it's got the volume, but it's not warmer than the more better. And that's because Bohannon, and it's one of the specific reasons I went towards Bohannon as a maker, apart from the fact that I just love his ukes aesthetically, is that he thickens the sides. He stiffens the sides. So rather than having one layer of wood, they actually have 2 or 3 layers, almost like a laminate made out of solid woods. That stiffens the sides and it pushes the sound out. You get a really kind of a lot of volume from that. So just something to think about. Soft tops tend to air towards warmer, but hardwoods tend to have more bite in the mids. Okay, I'll see if there's any questions on any of that, because I covered that quite quickly, so hopefully that helps. So Karen's asked a good question. If uke has a polished finish, does that make the wood less resonant? Not necessarily, Karen. It's more to do with how thick or thin that finish is. So with a lot of uke makers, the actual finish is only created, the shiny gloss finish is only created by taking the same finish on the top, so say a nitrocellulose lacquer or a poly finish, and polishing it up. So satin ukes will still have a layer of lacquer on the top, if you like, or whatever they use to finish it, nitrocellulose. It's just that the glossy ones have been buffed up, so they go really shiny. So the thing that does affect the wood vibrating on the top is how thick that finish is. And that's not really whether it's gloss or satin, that's more to do with the fact that some builders will really get that finish as thin as possible while still being durable. Whereas other brands, they want a kind of thick, strong finish, which looks beautiful, but and is very durable, but can kill the sound a little bit. So that's something to think of as well. There's tons of stuff, guys. Even like the size of the bridge can make a difference, because the bigger the bridge, the less soundboard there is to vibrate. So lots and lots of things to think about. But here's the exciting thing, and I'm kind of annoyed with myself. I've talked about that for 20 minutes already, because here's the brilliant thing. We all obsess about getting the best tone out of our ukulele, and we try different brands, we try different woods, we try different strings, we try different sizes. The biggest influence, I believe, on a ukulele and its tone is the player and their technique. And that is amazing, right? You might think, oh no, that means that my technique isn't that great yet, or whatever, but you have the power now to improve that tone, and I'm going to show you how. I mean, take this more better, right? Obviously, if you thought of as very, very high-end uke, but if I was to play it down here with my nails, I can make it sound quite shrill and not very nice, right? Not very nice, right? If I use my thumb and I play it dolce in the correct place, whole different matter. Okay, so there's so much that you can do to affect the tone, and that's what I'm going to teach you. In a little while, we'll talk about nails, polishing, all sorts of things like that. But let's just have a little bit of an experiment to get you playing, because I don't want to just talk at you for 2 hours. That would be boring, right? So let's do something right away that we can do to get a really lovely warm tone, and then we'll look at varying tone. So let's have a look at the first few measures of the piece of music that we've got. Now, don't panic if you haven't downloaded this, you don't have it available. You can always do it afterwards. You can probably work out what we're doing. If I zoom in a little bit, and we'll just perhaps do a couple of measures. You can follow it on screen anyway. And everything that I'm going to talk about in terms of technique, it will work as well. Let's just literally look at 2 measures in terms of how to play it, and then I'll show you how you can start affecting the tone using our magic fingers, right? So the start of this piece starts on a C major 7th chord. Sounds kind of fancy pants, but that just means the 2nd fret of the A string. Don't worry too much about this hand yet, because we'll delve on into that in just a second, but I'm just going to drag my thumb over all 4 strings. That gives me that C major 7th chord. Then I'm just going to play a C and a B. That just means 3 and 2 on that string. So that's... Notice that I keep this 2nd finger down as I hit that C. And then finally, I'm going to put my 3rd finger, ring finger, on the 3rd string of the E string, 3rd fret of the E string, sorry, and strum only as far as that. So the opening 2 measures. Okay. Now let's dig into how we can make that sound really nice. Let's look at getting a that is basically as warm tone as we possibly can at the minute. I'll put the sheet music back on in a second. Oh, this way. Okay. First thing that I want you to do is work on your right hand technique. If you want a warm tone, which is what I really wanted for the start of this piece, the best thing you can do to achieve warm tone is to use your thumb. And some of the best players in the world, people like James Hill, you can see him playing whole pieces of music. I'm trying to think. He'll play whole pieces of music just using his thumb. Notice all of those notes I was just picking with my thumb, and that's my favourite way to play chord melody. I will use these fingers, and we're going to look at that in a lot of detail, but if you're after a lush warm tone, the best thing you can do is to use your thumb. Now let's dig into how to really use that thumb to make it sound lovely. Now a lot of this is about arm positioning, so I'll come in as close as I can here on screen so you can see what's going on. So, first of all, notice a few things about my ukulele. I know it sounds daft, but we talk about this even in my beginner lessons, don't we? Ukulele at 45-degree angle. That will help with your fretting hand here. Another thing is try not to cuddle your uke. We all love our uke so much, but if I cuddle it right up, it won't have the same volume and presence as if I hold it slightly away from my body. It is touching my body, okay, but notice it's not pushed right here. So ladies, this is a little bit harder for you than the gents for obvious reasons, but try and have a slight gap with the ukulele to your body. Try not to cuddle it too tight. And I'm just resting mine on my knee here so I can hold it up at a 45-degree angle. Now this arm is super crucial. When I played these notes with my thumb, let's just say that good old C major 7th chord. So we just literally just strum the opening chord. Notice a few things. First of all, if I tilt my uke this way, can you see how my arm is almost like a bridge? Again, that's all about allowing the top of the ukulele, which produces the tone, to ring out. If I put my arm on it, even if I avoid the strings, it's going to dampen down the tone. So by doing this, there's only minimal contact with the soundboard. And notice that means my wrist has moved up. That also leads to something else which is really, really important. Can you see that my thumb is almost at a right angle to the strings? It's not like this. A lot of people will use their thumb and drag it down like this. Can you see how that can kind of sound quite tinny? And also it increases the chance of the string getting caught under my thumb, and that's a horrible sound, right? So notice the difference. If I move my arm out so that my thumb is coming down at a right angle to the strings, listen to that tone. Try it on your uke. Drag that thumb over very gently over the strings. Really enjoy the beautiful sound of your uke. So many times we go into playing something really complex or busy and we just forget to enjoy the beautiful tone of our ukuleles. Okay. Notice another thing. I'm going to keep doing this and you can join in with me. What's moving as that thumb comes down? It's almost entirely the arm, isn't it? Your arm has strength that your thumb muscles don't. And it's easy and gentle to move it right back over the strings, warming up that tone. Okay. Really important. So I'm not doing this. My whole arm is moving down. Notice one other thing. If you have a look at my thumb, can you see how it's almost bent back on itself? It's not like this. If I put an angle, if I bend my knuckle in my thumb and I drag it down, can you see how it creates an attack, which can be really nice? But notice when I allow it to bend back on itself and I keep it straight, it's the warmth of the finger, and that's the warmth of the thumb, and that's kind of just down to physical differences, right? If you think about it, if your thumb is bent like this, it can still kind of have a shock absorber effect. It can move backwards and forwards, so it doesn't have a strength. If my thumb is like that, it can't move backwards unless I do myself a mischief, right? So there's where your power and your warmth comes from. That thumb at a right angle coming down. And do you know what? This sounds really beautiful on a Bo Hannum uke made by this really amazing, clever guy called Bo Hannum, who happens to be in the comments. So, low G again. Coming down over the strings. Now remember I promised I would talk to you about how to get the best sound out of a wound low G. This is a really good opportunity to do this. When I pass through a chord or when I'm picking notes on a low G, if it's wound like this one is, I tend to try and use the flesh of my thumb as I pass over the low G. If I use the nail, going to get that right. And people really hate that sound. A lot of people say they won't use a wound low G because of that sound. But when you're strumming and picking notes, if you pass over it with the pad of your thumb and then bring your nail over the next few strings, how beautiful does that sound? Absolutely gorgeous, right? Here we go. Okay, so that's how we're going to pick this bit. What we're going to do for the next few notes is we're also going to pick those for the thumb. Esther, did you mean the sheet music back up? I was about to put that back up now anyway, because we're going to do the next little bit. Let's just bring that forward. There we go. That's why I do a build with a live back. What does that mean, Bo? I'm just kind of intrigued in terms of that, not building with a live back. I'm really intrigued by that. So, Bo, let us know in the comments what you mean by a live back. I was just talking about the fact that your uke has so much volume because of the stiffened sides, and that was one of the reasons that I really wanted one of your ukuleles. In the volume in it is massive, which I absolutely love. So let's have a look at the first couple of measures again. Put them on screen there. I'll scooch over here so you can still see what I'm doing. So drag that thumb over as warm as you can for that C major 7 and use the same principle to play the next few notes. And then when we go to this one, we have another technique which is really super important. The melody note here is a G. So the melody, if you like, goes like this. And we want to hear that melody note come out louder than the rest of the chord. So as you play the first chord on measure 2, drag your thumb over the strings, dig in as you come down, and notice something crucially important. My thumb ends up resting on the A string. Can you see that? What you don't want is to kind of try and take your hand away. That means that that G note is going to come through really prominently, but it also means that I'm not accidentally going to come strum too far. So the first measure, let me just, I can bring it on screen like that, will sound like this. Can you see how we're really teasing those notes out, which is beautiful. Oh, that's right. Esther and Bo were just chatting amongst themselves. Cool. Let's try and have a look at the next bit, just to do a little bit more of the song. The next thing after we've passed through those notes is we're going to play an open E, again playing with the thumb, and then we're going to put our second finger, second string down, second fret, and just pick the top 2. Again, even though it's only 2 notes, we rest our thumb on the string after the one that we've played, and we'll get that lovely warm tone. Let's try piecing that all together. Sorry guys, try and move this out of the way a little bit, because otherwise you can't see what's going on. So it will look like this. Okay. Now what we call here, this form of playing when we're playing in this section of the ukulele where the body of the uke meets the neck, where you get that lovely warm tone, we call that dolce. On this sheet, in your worksheets, I've got a picture of a really badly drawn ukulele. You wouldn't believe I did it at A level, would you? Well, we get these terms from Italian. Dolce in Italian means sweet, doesn't it? And ponte, which is short for ponticello, that means near the bridge. Okay, ponte, bridge. So when we play here, we call this ponte, it's a bright tone. When we play here, we call it dolce for sweetness. And later on, we're going to work at varying those tones to kind of create a nice bit of drama. Let's talk about fingernails next, I think. So on your sheet, we've got another diagram here, which is really interesting. In fact, let me bring that up on screen. Where are we? Okay. And as I say, ask questions as we go along because it's the best way to learn. So not everyone has nails when they're playing ukulele on their on their picking hand. I say picking hand because obviously we might have left hand players as well, so try and avoid right hand, left hand. If you have got long nails or you want to grow long nails to play ukulele, this can give you a real bit of bite in your playing, and it can really add to the sustain of your picking hand. But you can also use pads of your fingers, and there's also ways to make those sound beautiful as well, which we'll look at in a bit. Okay. If you do have nails and you want to get the warmest tone, many classical guitar players, and I agree with this, many ukulele players do this as well, they will ramp their fingernails. Mine's very gradual. There's not much of a ramp on mine. Hard to focus, isn't it? Let's see when I come in there. There's a very slight ramp. But can you see in the diagram we have a ramp going from left to right? That's something to consider when you're filing your nails for ukulele playing. If you have a ramp that goes from left to right, as your nail passes over the string travels along the ramp and then flows away from the nail in a smooth manner. And that gives you a really lovely, lovely warm tone. Many of you will know I've been learning slack key guitar with Jeff Peterson, and he's a brilliant classical guitar and slack key guitarist. And all his nails have quite extreme ramps on them, and I've noticed that really helps him achieve a warm tone. If you want a brighter tone, I go somewhere in the middle. If you have a look with mine, they're a little bit ramped, but a little bit pointed as well. If you want a brighter tone, we can go for the traditional nail with the kind of semi-circle circumference on the top. If you can't grow any nails at all, don't panic. You can still get a lovely tone using the pad of the fingers, using all the techniques we're going to use today. And when you do the thumb thing, even if you've got the shortest thumbnail, if you drag it over, you should be able to get a little bit of nail contact with the strings. Really important things in terms of nails is keeping them, if you are using nails, is to keep them in good condition. So as well as filing them down to prevent them getting too long and breakages, have one of these nail cubes handy. Before I do any lesson, a lot of you might not realise this, before I do any kind of capella lessons, any of these live lessons, anything like this, I will use this to buff my nails. So we've got one for filing, one for ridges, one for buffing, and then one for polishing. And sometimes if I've already done this in the day, I'll just use the very last one, the polish and shine. These are like £2 off eBay or Amazon or any other good shops that you might buy them from. And this will just smooth out your nails, and it makes such a massive difference. When we had Tony Mizzen come to play, brilliant classical ukulele player, I noticed that right before he went on stage, literally before he started the first song, as he was chatting to the audience, he was buffing his nails up. And it makes such a difference. You can get that lovely warm tone from them. That's something to consider. Personally, I am against nail hardeners. I find a lot of ukulele players will use nail hardeners to try and increase the strength of their nails to stop them breaking. But nail hardeners dry out your nails and they make them less flexible. So they actually can lead to your nails having a really kind of bright, shrill tone. And my tip, which I put at the bottom of this sheet, is the opposite. It sounds totally crazy, and I've not heard anyone else doing this, but I've used this for about 15 years and it's always worked for me. I actually use nail moisturiser. Complete opposite, right? You'd think, what? I moisturise my nails. What that does is it helps with that warm tone because they're slightly flexible. There's more give, which is really, really lovely. But the best thing is, people think I have some magical diet or I'm really careful. You know, I do lots of gardening and all sorts. Touch wood, I haven't broken a nail in something like 6 or 7 years. It's been a long, long time. And that's because when my nails hit something, they'll bend slightly. They won't crack. So that's my tip. use nail moisturiser. Okay, let's go back to, should we just do a little bit more of this song? Because it'll be fun to get us playing some music, won't we? Let's go back, grab your sheets for your Sigh Waltz, and we'll do the next couple of measures, and then we'll look at altering our tone. There it is. There we go. So far we've got that lovely intro, dragging the thumb over in the dolce position. We come off for an open E. We hit the top two strings of a G7, or you can just press 0, 2. Okay. That gives us our opening of our piece of music. Can you see next? There's the fun bit, right? There's this. Ta-da! I love the sounds of harmonics. Harmonics is where we're teasing a note out of our ukulele, which is a whole octave higher than it should be. And it's created using science, something called the harmonic series. You're basically tricking the string into thinking it's half the length that it is. And there's a couple of techniques that we can do to get these lovely harmonics going. Thanks, Bo, for your explanations. I really appreciate that, mate. I'm gonna dig into that in a bit. That's really fascinating, actually. Now, to get a harmonic, we can play them over the 12th fret. We can even do the 7th and the 5th. And you can hardly hear the 5th because they're quite hard to pull out. But we tend to do them at the 12th fret. Here's the important thing about creating a harmonic. Your finger, fretting finger, needs to be touching the string right above the 12th fret. Can you see that there? Your 12th fret normally has 2 dots on it. I think most ukuleles will have 2 dots. Some will have 1. But you can normally see it up here. But my finger is to the right. It's actually physically over the metal fret, isn't it? The 12th fret. It's not in the middle where you'd normally press to play a note. It's actually physically over the 12th fret. Try doing that with your index finger. I want you to place your finger on the string, but don't press. We're not pressing it down, we're just lightly touching the top of the string. Then, with your thumb, you're going to pick that G string, and as you do it, you're going to take this finger away. And if you experiment, there's a nice one. You can get a really lovely harmonic ringing out. Now, the reason I say experiment is that every ukulele is slightly different, and string tension and all sorts of things with how hard you need to press. But remember, we're very lightly touching over the metal fret, okay? We're over the metal 12th fret. And we pick with the thumb, and then we lift up. If you lift up too soon, we have this. Yeah, because it's gone too soon. If we leave it too long, we've missed the magic moment, and it won't have rung out quite so nice. So have a little practice of that. Okay. That's a really lovely way to create a harmonic. You can do it on any of the strings. Like that, you get these lovely notes ringing out. Now, if anyone wants to be super fancy pants, you can do this. You can use one hand to do a harmonic. Now, this one's a bit more tricky. It's quite nice to do though, because it means I can leave that G7 shape or the 0-2 down and allow that to ring out as I create the harmonic. It's a beautiful way to pull out a harmonic tone out of your ukulele. What we're going to do, let me come into the close one. Yeah, Karen! Yeah. I love it when things go to plan. Well done. If anyone else got a harmonic out, let me know, because I'd be really proud of you. It takes a lot of practice, doesn't it? Right, what we can do to do this artificial harmonic using a finger and a thumb is this. Let's go to that angle so you can see what's happening. What you want to do is you want to place your index finger above that 12th fret again, literally above the metal fret. But notice this time I'm not coming from down here, I'm just coming from the side. Now, it's hard to show this without moving this out of the way. Your thumb needs to be 2 or 3 frets behind it. If you go too far, it muffles, and if you go too close, it doesn't ring out. About 2 or 3 frets behind. And what I'm doing, in effect, is I'm doing what I just did with 2 hands with 1 hand. Because I'm picking with the thumb, Whoops, that was a bad one. It's hard to do it and show you at the same time. As I pick with the thumb, I'm just removing my index finger slightly after. Gives you a lovely harmonic. Isn't that cool? So notice that the note head of that note has a diamond head. That's what we call a harmonic. If you see a diamond head, you know it's going to be a harmonic. So then we can have... leave the strings ringing out and just touch for that really beautiful harmonic. If you really struggle with that harmonic but you still want to play the piece, you could just leave it out. It's not a big deal. Eventually you can actually play chords using harmonics. It's really cool. But just for now, I'm just going to play that one note. Let's bring it back in then. That gives you your first 4 measures then. Notice the next 3 or 4 measures are exactly the same. C major 7, we want that warm tone. Open E, top 2. Now this time the only difference is the harmonic is on the A string. It's exactly the same principle. You can either use this hand and take it away, or you can try your 1 finger harmonic. Or if you're struggling with both of those, it still sounds lovely just to let that note ring out. Just ignore the harmonic. Okay. Lovely jumbly. Let's have a look at how we can vary the tone with the next bit then. I'll teach you how to play it using your thumb, and then I'll show you how we could create some lovely variations using different fingers. The next bit, if you just want to play it, what we have is an A minor add 9. Don't worry about what that means too much. It's just an A minor with the 9th note of the scale added. That's for another day with a theory, right? What it looks like is 2002. So that means like a normal A minor, but your finger, I tend to use my second finger, could be third, is playing the 2nd fret of the A string, right? So it's kind of symmetrical. The reason I use 1 and 2 is because I find I have the most kind of ability to move this one over for that C note that follows. If I do this, I find it slightly more awkward to move my little finger. So we strum, dolce, thumb straight, arm coming down. And we just add that C note on and off. And then we strum an F chord. That's it, right? In that section, we have an open A note. We do it again, 2002, 3-2, and then we have an F chord. We do it one more time. This time when we do the F chord, we add a finger down here to the 2nd fret of the A string. Which way am I going? So you can see it that way. Little finger on 3. Now the next chord looks really awkward, doesn't it? That G with the 5 on it. Well, all it is you just play a bog standard G chord and then reach up if you can to the 5th fret with that little finger. Okay. So those last 2 measures I just did, that's measures 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15 will sound like this. F, 2, 3, just put your G chord down. And little finger down. Okay. Now, one of my favourite things to do in a piece of music is to alter the tone. And one of the easiest ways to alter the tone is to use a different style of playing. So far, we've used our thumb in a dolce position to create a really warm tone. What if when it went to that A minor part, we wanted a different tone? Well, the easy peasiest lemon squeeziest way of doing it is to still play with the thumb, but bring it back towards your bridge. That will give you a brighter tone. Have a listen. Much brighter, right, than... That's something worth experimenting with. Ponte just means play towards the bridge. Sometimes when a kind of a section of music is repeated, I love to play it one way and then another. Let's do that. What we'll do, let's actually do that on the opening phrase. So you know how the opening phrase is this. Let me just play it. And then if you can, your harmonic. Then we do the same thing again, right? And then we have an A harmonic. Don't sweat that too much. Well, what I want you to try to experiment with is to try playing the first couple of measures with your thumb in dolce. Then do exactly the same thing, but play it back here in ponte. Oops. Whoa, what am I doing? I have my finger down in the wrong place. So even though it's not a massive difference because we're still using the power of that thumb, there's a slight difference in the timbre, isn't there, in the tone? It's a lot more shimmery. So just take a couple of minutes just to practice those first few measures, the C major 7 going to the G7, and just try playing dolce and then ponte and see what you think. Let me know in the comments how you got on with that. I'd really like to see if you can hear the difference in your ukulele playing. And already, just the most simple thing in the world, we're altering our tone. As you're doing that, I'm just going to get my sheet ready for the next bit, because then we're going to have a look at finger picking, which is going to be even more exciting, I think. Let's have a look. Okay. Let me get my sheet ready. Okay. Here we are. Okay. Okay, everyone. So I'll wait to see if I've got any comments through about the dolce ponte. Hopefully we have in a minute. Let's have a look at finger picking using all of our fingers rather than the thumb. Even within this, there's massive things that affect the tone, even more than nails and nail shapes and stuff like that. That's all stuff you can do to improve your tone. But this is stuff that you can do to affect the tone whether or not you've got these nails. So what we can do when we've got a chord melody like we have, rather than using the thumb to strum down on the chords and then pick out the notes, we can play what we call Pima style, where the thumb is going to rest on the G string, the index is going to rest underneath the C string, the middle finger is going to rest underneath the E string, and the ring finger is going to live underneath that A string. The reason it's called Pima, it comes back to Spanish guitar, because this is a classical guitar technique. In Spanish, polga, your thumb is polga, P. Indice, medio. The ring finger in Spanish is annular, so P-I-M-A. Now let's have a look at how we're doing this. I'm only holding my uke up here, by the way, so that I can show you up close. I still want you to have your uke resting on your knee as much as possible if you can. Or if you have a strap, at least keep it at a 45-degree angle. Now there's two different ways we can hold our arm position for these Pima style picking, and both is going to affect a different tone. The first is what we call short arm. And again, this comes back to classical technique. When we do short arm picking, our arm comes over the top of the ukulele. Can you see the shape in my hand? Because of the need I want to pick upwards on the strings, my hand is almost at that'd be 45. No, that'd be 90, wouldn't it? Yeah, it's about a 45-degree angle coming away from my arm. My arm is just resting on the upper part of the ukulele, and notice that my fingers are again at a 45-degree angles to the strings. They're not like this, and they're not totally flat. But in short arm, when you pick up with these three fingers, try picking up with the C string and the E string and the A string. I'm trying to show you how best to do it. Okay, and then try picking down with your thumb. Thumb, index, middle, ring. Thumb, index, middle, ring. Thumb, index, middle, ring. Notice that this technique, this short arm technique, allows you to pick up towards the palm of the hand. If we do what we call long arm technique, that means that the arm comes round from the side of the ukulele. It's not going over the top, it's coming from the side. Now when we pick with this technique, by necessity, unless I've got this really uncomfortable hand position, I'm picking with the side of the nails. This will give you a brighter pick. Notice I'm still cycling those nails backwards. So if you really want a brighter tone when you're picking, think about long arm. If you want a kind of warmer tone, think about short arm, okay? The reason you get a warmer tone from short arm is it's the middle part of your finger, whether it's the nail or the pad, that is picking the strings, and that tends to give it the warmer tone. When we do the sides, it has more of a sh noise as your nail passes through it, okay? So that's one thing to consider. But it gets even better than that. We can affect it even more. I'm just going to check with a couple of comments here. When I go from dolce to ponte, do you move your forearm down the uke? Yeah, absolutely. So remember, because we're picking with our thumb at the moment with these ponte and dolce, you don't want to then kind of change the thumb position by moving the hand like this. So as you go from forearm, as you go from dolce to ponte, bring the whole arm back. Okay. Okay. So we've still got that curve, it's just further back. Okay. Now there's even more stuff that we can do to vary the notes that we play using either short arm or long arm. And that's something called a free stroke versus a rest stroke. Let's take a few notes. Do you remember the start of the song? Rather than worrying about playing a C major, let me just, for some reason my logo's gone massive. Let's get it out the way. There we go, shrunk it down. There you go, you can see what I'm doing now. Okay, so the start of the song, forget the chord, just play these notes. 2, 3, 2, and then 3 on the E string. That's the melody at the start of the song, isn't it? 2, 3, 2, 3. That is B, C, B, G. Now we're going to play those notes in different ways. The first thing we're going to do is something called a rest stroke. Now a rest stroke we tend to do in short arm position, and it's when we take any one of these fingers to pick a note. I'm going to go for the middle finger, I think, this time. When we pick the note, say that first B, with a rest stroke, oh goodness, sorry, trying to get the angle on it. It's always hard to do things in these live lessons and look at what I'm doing because it's all back to front. Now notice as I do this rest stroke, can you see that my finger is relatively straight? It's not bent like this. And it's pulling back and it's resting on a string above it. Okay. Now, if we put those few notes together, what did we have? 2, 3, 2, wasn't it, the first 3 notes? You could even use 2 fingers quite nicely. Okay. So this would be a rest stroke. 2, 3, 2. Because each of those fingers is resting on the string behind it. If I go to that last note, the third note of the E string, when I pull back, I rest my note on the C string above. So that would look something like this. See that? Now, because I'm using the middle part of my finger, it can sound quite bright. But also it adds a lot of volume. So many classical guitars will use this technique to really dig in and give like a really deep, loud tone. And we call that a rest stroke. So that would be one way to think about picking any section of that song. It could be the first one, or it could be later on. Now the other way that we can do it is something called a free stroke. And a free stroke is when we go to a more natural position, okay? And when we pick back with our fingers, we could still use the same 1 and 2. We just cycle back into the palm. Let me find an angle that'll work. Let's get this out of the way. So rather than resting on a string above, like that, I'm just going to allow it to cycle up into the palm. Can you hear how that's a lighter tone? If I do the rest stroke, it's got quite a lot of power, hasn't it, and volume. If I do the free stroke, whoops, it's lighter. And I can affect it even more by coming and doing a ponte free stroke or a ponte rest stroke. So there's all of these things that can affect tone. Listen to the difference there between dolce and ponte. So let's go back one more time to those first few notes. It was 2, 3, 2, 3 up there. And I want you to play it this way with rest strokes. And then I want you to play it with free strokes. Just let the fingers curl up and away. And I want to know which you prefer the sound of. Try them both in dolce for now, just to get comfortable with it. I'll check through a couple of these comments, because as I said, it's really important to ask questions as we go along here. Okay. So Karen's got a good question here. Is it a good idea to leave your pinky on the body of the uke if not? Oh, brilliant question, Karen. I told you I love questions. That's brilliant. Sometimes it depends on the technique. I find when I'm doing free strokes, because the fingers just kind of curl back into my hand, I tend to leave it in place and it kind of steadies my hand. So you could try just playing let's do a C major chord, because that's that first one. You could try playing it as individual notes, just as free strokes. There I would tend to leave my pinky on to steady my hand. Some people get really snobby about it in the classical guitar world and think that if you put your little finger on the soundboard, it dampens it down too much. But honestly, see if you can spot the difference in sound. I don't think there's any. So I think it's absolutely fine to have it there to rest if you like. Some people prefer the freedom. Now, when I do rest strokes, because it's almost the necessity of the hand shape, can you see how my hand pulls back? Because it's not doing this. It's like the thumb earlier. It's flat. Now, I find I just can't do that with that finger in place. When I'm doing rest strokes, I tend to move the little finger out the way. Okay. The rest stroke is lovely, isn't it? It gives you a really lovely warm tone, especially if you do it, say, on the E string. It's got a lovely bit of warmth to it, which is really nice. No worries, Richard. Richard's got to go and pick up his car. Hope yours does better than mine. Mine's in the garage at the moment. There we go. So, should we put this into the piece of music? Because I feel like I've been talking and talking and talking and talking at you. Let's try adding this to the piece of music. What I would like to do is see if we can get as much differentiation in those repeats as possible. So we're going to do that first line again. Don't worry, you'll soon get the rest of the song. I'll teach it to you in no time, in a sec. It's really easy peasy from here. The first 4 measures, I want you to use your thumb. I want you to be as dolce as possible. I want you to drag with your whole arm. And I want you to keep that thumb as warm as possible. So it will sound like this. And then a harmonic if you can. Let's do it together after 3. 1, 2, 3. Now what I'd like you to do is I would like you to do the same thing, but I would like to use Pima style picking, when we do the chord at the start, rather than strumming down with the thumb, we're going to pick all 4 strings at the same time, just by pinching and pulling up. And then we're going to play through the notes Pima style. I don't worry too much about whether you use a free stroke or a rest stroke for now, but what I would like to do is just bring your hand back slightly over the sound hole or even lower down, so we get this nice, totally different tone, right? Okay, let me put those together so you can hear. So from the top, and then you can copy it back. You can try playing along with me or come back to it in a second. This angle should give you the best view of my hand. Super dolce. Now ponte and picked. Now what we're doing is we're adding dynamics in. Isn't that lovely? You've got one kind of dolce part, one kind of ponte part, and we're adding some lovely dynamics in, which is super nice. Let's have a look at the next bit where we've got those A minors. So we've got the A minors into the Fs. I think what we should do is make the first one of those dolce. Oh, sorry, come on, computer's playing up and my fingers ring. So the first one, and the second one, I think. And then the third one, we'll pull our hand back. And I think this chord here, the G, we want to dolce, because we want that nice and ringing out, okay? So dolce, dolce, ponte, and dolce. Drag that thumb down. Okay, so we've got some nice variation there. If you prefer the whole piece to be really sweet, you could just use your thumb, just go for that warmth. Generally, I tend to just go for that warmth because that's my style of playing. That's what people know me as. I kind of play slow, melancholic, kind of warm sounding music. So, but just to show you what a tool it could be, we can add that dolce or that ponte, and just by changing the fingers, we have a totally different sound. Let's have a look at the next bit so you can see what happens in the next bit of the music, and then you've done a really great job because you'll realise there's a lot of repetition. I'll just physically show you what we do in the next section after we've hit that lovely G chord. The next bit is where we get up the fretboard and we have this. And then we have another pick. Now, that is from measure 17 if you've got the sheet music in front of you. Now, the main thing here with your left hand, and we're going to talk about left hand can affect dynamics as well in a minute, which is quite amazing. A lot of people forget that. But just in terms of the playing with this one, I want you to use as many fingers as possible. Now, normally when I go up the fretboard, I reset to my first finger, but because I know in a minute I'm going to want to come backwards, I actually play that chord at the 7th fret where we strum all the way. That's my 7th fret. I actually use my 3rd finger. I drop my little finger down for the 8, which is an F. I come back. That means then I can drag back to the 5th fret, my 2nd. And I can move up. And then I can go to this chord. So just to talk you through that, strum the 7th. Pick the 8th, 7th, strum the 5th, pick the 7th, pick the 5th. And then we have this lovely chord here. There's so many places we can play chords. We get so used to playing an A minor here, right? Which sounds like this. But I love an A minor played at the 5th and 4th fret. Because the notes are all, Esther, you'll like this. This is almost like one of our crunchy chords. There's all the notes are closer together, which is super sweet. Okay, and that's this shape here. So 5 4 0 0. If you put that together, let's just go for a dolce warm thumb with this one for now. So 7 strummed, 8 7, 5 strummed, 7 5, and then your A minor, and then we're going to pick that 12th fret. Oh, thanks, Karen. Yeah, I think I'm a melancholy soul, so all of my songs tend to be quite relaxing and slow. It just seems to work with what I like to play. Thanks, guys. Now, did you know you can also affect tone with the left hand? So there's like, whoa, so much to think about, right? You've got uke sizes, strings, tones, nail shape, buffing. Then we've got ponte, dolce, fingers versus thumbs, rest strokes versus free strokes. That's a lot in itself. But you can even influence the dynamics with your left hand. Have you noticed something that I do a lot in my playing if you've been watching my lessons? Even on a chord. If I slow that down. I'll add some vibrato in. And vibrato can affect the tone. Again, what vibrato tends to do is it softens up the tone of a note and it gives it a slight wobble. And again, I don't know the science behind this. I wish I did. It's probably really interesting. I think because you're keeping the movement in the string, it actually lengthens the sustain of the note. Okay. Let me show you how to do a vibrato. Let's just pick a random note. Let's pick a D note. That's the 5th fret of the A string. I want you to play it with your 3rd finger because the 3rd or 2nd fingers tend to be best for vibrato because they're in the middle of your hand and it really kind of balances out the weight. I'm going to use my 3rd one here. What I want you to do is just pick that note and just add no vibrato at all. It'll sound like this. Quite straight. But notice if I give it a little bit of personality. I hope you're picking that up. Over the internet connection, it's quite subtle. Gives it a slight bit of personality and it lengthens the note. Crucial things about vibrato that, again, I don't know why it never seems to be taught vibrato, and I think it's a brilliant technique to do on uke. But no one ever seems to talk about the thumb. With vibrato, I found the best thing you can do to affect good vibrato is to take the thumb away from the back. And that might feel a bit insecure because the uke's kind of moving about. So I'll kind of just use this arm to balance the uke a little bit. Remember, if it's on your lap, it's in place, or if you've got a strap, you'll be fine anyway. If I have my thumb on the back, I can't really move my hand very freely. But if I take my thumb away, I can affect a much better movement. Next thing I want you to do, and this is a little bit woolly and artsy, but imagine that this finger has grown roots into the fretboard, or someone's super glued the tip of your finger in place in that fret. When you do vibrato, the finger doesn't move back and forwards. People think it does, but it doesn't. The finger stays glued in place and the whole arm and hand shakes. I'm not shaking my finger especially, the movement of my arm shaking, okay, is affecting a wobble in that finger, but the very centre of that fingertip isn't moving. That means we get a wobble rather than a kind of weird slide where you get those you'll get those buzzes. All right, and you see just a little wobble in the arm, and that can really kind of tease out those notes. See? So have a little practice of that section again. Let me go through it again. Let me just bring it on screen. Where are we? That's from yeah, the end of the 2nd line, isn't it? So 7 with a strum. You could give it a little wobble. 8 7 5 7 5, and then that lovely A minor. There's a great player in Hawaii called Kalei Gaimau. He's a really lovely guy. I actually met him in the shop in which he works out there. And I've noticed when he does chords, even like some difficult chords, like something like a C6, he'll affect a little wobble. a little vibrato. So even when we go back to that A minor, can you hear that? Isn't that lovely? There's a little wobble there. And again, just creates a little bit of drama and a little bit of beauty. Whenever I'm doing that vibrato, notice that my thumb comes out and these fingers move out. Same here as well. Because to get that movement, that shake, you want to widen this. So you're basically, in effect, you're creating a kind of a pivot on your finger. So something else to think about. And the other thing that you can do with these fingers is keep them pressing as you play through the notes. And this is the crucial thing. I read a really interesting article in Uke magazine all about this with Jake Shimabukuro. He said his playing sounded much more beautiful and progressed much more quickly when he allowed himself to hear the tail of the notes and didn't go to the next note too quickly. So when we do that 7, 8, 7, notice it could sound a bit like this. And that's kind of killing it dead, isn't it? The beauty of that thing. If we put our finger down, I need to come in closer, I think. If we put our finger down for the next note before, let's do it as notes rather than strum, actually, you'll hear it better. Notice that as soon as I put that finger down, it kind of kills a little bit of the last note. So when you go to that 8th fret, you put your finger down just as you're about to strike it. Okay? And when you do that for the chord, notice how much more beautiful that makes it. Same here. So don't put it ready down until you're just about to play it. And that can really make a beautiful, beautiful difference. You could also, if you want to, involve legato techniques. Legato is just a fancy name for saying that notes move into one another. So rather than this would be staccato, the opposite of legato. Legato would be kind of super mellow. What you can do to add legato techniques is you could hammer on one of the notes. So rather than 7 to 8, like that, you could just play the 7th fret once and push that finger down for that 8. And then if you join that together with the next note. Oh, sorry, I forgot to take my finger away. You're only picking twice. Okay. Oh, sorry guys, I'm forgetting to lift my finger off. There we go, that'd be better, wouldn't it? And notice how that smooths it out. Again, rather than we've got. And you could do the same here, couldn't you? 5 to 7. And if you're coming down for a hammer on, have the courage of your conviction. Notice, I still let the first note ring out, but I come down quite hard and fast when it is time for that note. So that can then sound like, smooths it out, doesn't it? And that's a beautiful thing you can do. If you wanted drama and you wanted the opposite, you could add that staccato, and if you're playing a piece that really called for that, that could be really nice. So left hand can affect things as much as the right hand, thinking in terms of legato. You could do slides to do the same thing. Sometimes when I play that 5th to the 7th fret, I'll actually slide up. So maybe perhaps try your 3rd finger. And you just strum once, slide the finger up, and come back. So you could do. Just have a little bit of an experiment, okay, as you go. Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, I shake from the elbow, so the whole arm is moving, but it probably is coming from down in the elbow, affecting that change in the arm. That's the important thing, really. You don't want to be shaking from the finger or using your hand muscles. It wants to come right from that elbow. Let's finish the song then, so we can see what happens at the end here. Okay, so we've done the whole of the Sigh Waltz, and then perhaps we'll put it together and finish off, and you can experiment yourselves. So after we've done this 7/8/7, 5/7/5, A minor, we do a little harmonic if you can at the A. You can keep your finger there if you use this one. Then we do a similar thing, but we're going to do 10, let me just check, 10/8/7, and then 8/7/5. Another one of those funny A minors, and a harmonic. Okay, and again, I think this bit sounds really sweet dolce, but you could vary it out of interest. You could do the first bit dolce with your thumb. You could do the next bit, you could do Ponte with the Beamer Star. For a different feel. And again, that varying of the tone. And if you only remember one thing today, that's really crucial. There's no such thing as good tone, bad tone. There's just different tones. It's all subjective. And that's the point. If you realise that there's different tones and don't think in terms of good and bad, you can use them to your advantage, so you can create that dynamics in your playing. Let's finish off the piece. This is just the final line. This is really easy once you get it. Basically, all we're doing, let me come in close, is we're just playing an F chord all the way down. I'd just go dolce for the sake of keeping it simple. And then we're doing 2/3 on the A string, that's B, C. Notice, again, all to do with tone again, I'm keeping my fingers down on the F as I hit that 2 and 3, because that keeps it nice and legato. If I was to take away that F, do you notice how it sounds a bit scrappy? Next up, I just play a normal G major chord all the way. I lift off my finger off the A string to hit that A note, and then I just pick that note on the E string. Put that together. G, lift, I do it again, G, F, and then this last time we play G, put my little finger on 3 for high C, and then finally up to the 5th fret for a high D, and then I come back to a normal C chord, and that's where we get the resolution. So this bit's all about tension and resolution. Change, tension, change, tension, change, tension, resolution. There we go. And again, we could alter that. I think the last bit does want to be super dolce there, doesn't it? Which is really sweet. Okay, fantastic. So what I'm going to do, let's just play the whole of that piece all together. This is probably going to look super tiny on screen, but I think most of you have got it downloaded or printed off anyway. But let's see if we can play the whole of this piece together. In terms of tone, I'm mostly going to play this dolce to go for a sweetness. I think it just suits the piece. It's sweet and melancholy. But if you want to experiment with Ponte and finger picking as well, that's well worth checking out and having a go at doing as well. Okay, so totally up to you. Let's play the whole piece really, really slowly. We'll go after 3 and just follow it along with me. 1, 2, 3. Vibrato. And then we have a harmonic. We go again. Harmonic on the A string. Funny A minor shape. F again. One more time. F. chords with our nails. And then we go 7. Hit that harmonic. 10. Whoops, sorry. Last section, Fs, G, F, G, F, G, and I'll slow it down to the vibrato, that last one. Yeah, lovely. There we go, there we go. Well, I hope you found that really enlightening. I'm just checking through my sheets to see if I've forgotten anything that I wanted to tell you about. Hopefully not, because I feel like I've been gabbing on and on and on and on and on for ages. So I hope you found that useful. As always, I'm going to stick around. I've gone a bit later than I normally plan to do because I obviously I talk more than I realise I'm going. But I'll stick around for another 1/4 of an hour, maybe even a bit longer, just in case anyone has any questions about any of that. If you want an opportunity to practice any of this stuff, don't forget about my Canacapella Mondays. That's where I teach you to play without sheet music. That's every Monday at 6 o'clock in the evening, those. And if you enjoyed this lesson and you'd like to catch up on previous live lessons, if you go to my website, I'm normally wearing my t-shirt with it on, aren't I? But I completely forgot today. I'm in Seattle for some reason today. If you go to my website, mattsteadukulele.com, all of the previous live lessons are listed, and you can still download all of the sheets involved for those as well. So what I would really super love, if anyone's feeling brave enough, it would mean a lot to me actually if anyone would be brave enough to do it. Perhaps one of you could have a go at this and post it online. I love to hear other people playing my pieces, and I'd love to see if you can kind of think about changing those dolce and ponte and free stroke and rest strokes, and see if you can add that variety. And I'd love to hear what you can make of this arrangement. It'd be really fantastic. In the description I've got a link to my Facebook group, which I think most of you are on now, which is absolutely brilliant, where you can kind of post these videos and get support. So it's no judging there at all. I made a mistake there when we're playing it live, so hopefully, you know, if I can make mistakes, you can, right? So just give it a go and post what you come up with. It'd be brilliant. So I'm going to stick around for a few more minutes in terms of any questions. I'll show you, as I do that, this morning, which is probably the reason why I'm not in the right t-shirt and I just forgot, sometimes on a morning I go to meet up with my luthier friend, Phil Davidson, and I've been making a ukulele with him. That's why I'm wearing this t-shirt. I'm covered in glue and sawdust and stuff. So I thought you might like to know what I went for, because I really love a soft top on a ukulele. So, ta-da! This is my ukulele that I'm making. Cool, huh? It's going to be, you know, I have my forest ukulele range. My handmade ones are going to be forest ukuleles, but made by little old me in the forest. So today I can't think, I routed out these channels so I can start putting the binding in. And if you look really closely, you can see I've started to glue the binding in at the top there. So we've got black, white, black, and that's going to match the black, white, black rosette. And then I've got some lovely faux tortoise shell, obviously not real tortoise shell. I'm far too much of a nature lover for that. And this is going to go around the edge. Isn't that going to look lovely? So that's what I've been doing today. Just thought I'd do a show and tell, just out of interest. And like I say, I love a soft top. So this is a spruce top, mahogany back and sides, and that's really interesting. Just in terms of tapping the back and front. You probably can't pick that up on Skype, but the top has a deeper, softer tone than the back, which I guess you would expect hardwood softwood, which I think is interesting. Do you want to see my headstock? This is my, I'm quite proud of this. This is going to be like a moonlit scene. So that's the horizon, and I've got a little moon up there, and that's gold mother of pearl, and then I've got a fretboard which is going to kind of have this lovely almost like desert effect as you go up. So here you go. This is what my ukulele is going to look like when it's finished. Ta-da! So yeah, it's been really fascinating, and some of this, in all seriousness, comes back to the tone discussion, because it's true that the soft top is going to produce like a bit of a warmer tone than a hardwood top, but also like just the pattern of the bracing and how heavy that bracing is. Is there loads of bits of wood under here, or is it just light enough that it's allowing the wood to breathe? It makes a big difference. So yeah, something to think about. There's a really nice documentary on YouTube that you find that goes into the Kamaka factory, and they talk a lot about tap testing. Well, they'll hold the piece of wood up to their ear and they'll tap it to see whether it needs a little bit more sanding off here and there, so you get that lovely kind of resonant tone. It's really, really fascinating, I think, so it's well worth a look. I can't remember what it's called, but if you look up Kamaka ukulele on YouTube, you're bound to find it. I'll pop that down for a minute. My favourite tone woods, if I was using the same builder for everything, I've actually only got 5 ukuleles at home, and they're all different builders, because I think it's really nice to support different builders. But I generally love soft top ukes. So this is redwood, which is one of my favourite woods, wood tops. Kind of quite plain in terms of the colour, but I mean, got lots of other pretty stuff going on, but it produces a lovely tone. And I do like koa back and sides, not just because they're really pretty, but I think koa produces a really warm tone as a back and sides rather than just the top. So that's my one. And I think there's a maple neck on this one. That's the River 7. I've shown you this a million times, haven't I? Where if you look carefully, it says, oh, it's showing today, look. Can you see just here on the headstock? If you hold it in a certain light, it says, here be dragons in Latin. And then if you turn it, it disappears and goes a different colour. He's a clever man, that Bohannon, isn't he? He's a very, very clever man. So, any questions with any of that? Let me know. I'll just see, I think there was a couple coming through. Oh, thanks, Ilka. Thank you. Thanks, guys. You. I think I've been gabbing on too long because I think everyone's ready to go, which is absolutely fine. I've been talking a long time, haven't I? But hopefully you found that useful and enlightening. And let me know how you get on if you use some of these things as well. I think that'd be great. Just checking through anything. So yeah. Wonder if Richard got his car fixed. There's some really interesting comments off. There's some really interesting comments off Bo, who made my ukulele, saying about his backs and sides are stiff and reflective. And I think that's why Bo's ukes have that particular really driving forward tone, which is, I love it. I absolutely love it. So he stiffens the sides and the back, which is really, really interesting. Fantastic. Okay. Bo says only professional classical guitar players have correct posture enough to bother making an instrument with a live back. Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Well, all you guys will have now, won't you? Cool. Go on, Esther. Ask about the ramp on the nails. I'll see if I can get up that page on here. Where is it? There we go. There's the picture. That's the one with your Dolce and Ponte on as well, so you can see where it is. There we go. It's a miracle that I passed my art A level, isn't it, really, when you look at those? So with the ramp, I might be guessing Esther's question, but just in case. The ramp wants to be going from left to right. So as you're looking at your hand, I guess from that side, it wants to be shortest this side going longest this side. So the shortest bit of the ramp will touch the string first. The string will travel along the ramp and off. So this one will be kind of like in that direction, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, do I ramp the thumbnail? I don't tend. I think some guitarists and ukulele players do ramp the thumbnail. The trouble is, a lot of it comes down to technique. Some people, when they pick with the thumb, when they're doing Pima style, they use this side of the nail to pick, so it's very much the left side of the nail. So I'd ramp that. I tend to be quite flat with the nail, don't I? The centre part of my nail. So I don't find ramping the nail has so much of effect. And when I'm doing the dolce thumb, I like to use the middle part of my nail anyway, rather than the side of it. So I personally don't ramp my nail, and I don't think it's as important as the fingers. It's so the fingers can travel over those strings and just really lightly come off. If you wanted to practice those strokes, a really nice thing to do is play through a scale using free strokes and rest strokes. So you know our C major scale, good old. Down here, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Off 2, off 1, 3, off 2, 3. A nice thing is to play that with a short arm, but using free strokes. And then bring your hand a little bit more crook so you can pull up, and you'll do rest strokes here. So notice I'll change to this finger. And I can really hear a stronger tone here rather than. So have a little experiment. It's really good to practice these things, coming up with the rest strokes and free strokes, and vary them with the piece of music. I was playing, just for anyone that's left, I was playing a really nice piece by Paul Mansell earlier. Where was it? If I still got the book somewhere, I could show you how I was varying the technique. It worked really well. There we go. I don't think any kind of brand of nail moisturiser will do. I've even I'll probably get a laugh for this, but I've even been known to nick the Sudocreme off the kids, which is what you use for their bottoms, to moisturise and put that on my nails, and it works. It's amazing. Anything that will just soften them up. A really nice tip I have from a classical guitarist, when he used to get on stage, was sometimes the oils from your hair. I know it sounds really gross, but the oils in your hair can just help soften those nails up. And also, you know how kind of oil works as a lubricant? That will really kind of help with those rest strokes and free strokes and passing over the strings. So he had long hair, longer than mine, and he would, just before he got on stage, just subtly, no one knows what he's doing, just put his fingers through his hair. And it just softens them up, which is really, really quite clever, isn't it? This is a lovely bit of Paul Mansell's book. Notice when it gets to a chord about halfway through in a minute that I change the tone. So I'll just use a kind of dolce at first with Pima. So. So it's all quite warm at the moment, isn't it? And then I really dug in there and exaggerated that, but suddenly we go from this lovely add in some really kind of hard rest strokes as opposed to free strokes, and then a real nail strum on one of the chords. It's really these are some pieces from his lovely book called Classical Uke. It's a really, really lovely book by Paul Mansell. There's another piece at the start as well, and then I'll shut up and let you all go, I promise. It's just a very simple kind of melody. So here we go. I'll then go to and then the next time dolce, and then I'll go to ponte. Notice how the ponte has almost like a harpsichord sound about it, so that's the way it can be kind of used to really add a nice bit of dynamic. I should be able to play that better by now because I've been practicing that all week with my students. So there we go, I need to practice myself. So yeah, try moisturising with that right hand as well. Really good thing to do, and have an experiment. Right, I'm going to sign off in a minute, guys. Thank you, Alan. Thanks, David. Thanks for all your support. I really appreciate it. I had lots of fun today. I hope you found that useful. Cool. And hopefully I'll see you in a couple of weeks. So these live lessons are going to be every other Wednesday. So it'll be 2 weeks from today will be the next live lesson. And my Can a Cappella sessions, if you ever want to come along, on every single Monday at 6 o'clock. So I know some of you, in fact most of you I think are from the Can a Cappella sessions as well. So thanks guys, it's really lovely to see you here and there at the same time. Brilliant. Well, I'm going to sign off now because I know I'm just gabbing on and not saying anything constructive. So I'm going to say goodbye now. I hope you found that useful, and I'll see you again soon. Take care everyone. Bye.